welcome into the latest edition of gPanel Office Hours. If this is your first time at one of our gPanel Office Hours, first off, thank you. Very good to see you all here. This is a monthly webinar series designed to help you master the platform in order to better serve your organizations. Every month, this is what you can expect from this webinar. First, we're going to explain and demo new features and product updates. And I think we've got a pretty exciting one today that you guys are going to like. Then we're going to walk you through a detailed tutorial on one specific function or one part of gPanel. The idea is you can follow along with us or take the recording and replicate this in your own gPanel instance. Today, obviously, we're going to focus on policies. And of course, we'll take your questions. I wanted to drop in one quick note. Those of you who have signed up, you have the option to opt into all of the gPanel Office Hours webinars. If you've chosen that, I want to give you a note that we are setting these up on a one-by-one basis, but we're about to launch the rest of them for the year. So you're going to get one notification for every one of these that we set up. For those of you who have opted into all of them, there's a day this week where you're probably going to get 8 or 9 email notifications from our platform, Livestorm. I apologize in advance. All we need you to do with those emails, I recommend going in, adding the webinar to your calendar, and then you can just delete it. The platform will send you a notification when we're a day or two away from actually going live with the webinar. So just a heads up on that. I didn't want to turn on a process that's going to trigger a bunch of emails to all of you without at least those of you that are here knowing about it. This is your team for today's webinar. I'm Brandon. I'm the marketing director at Promevo, and I'll be your host. I'm joined by Mark Beckerin, one of our resident gPanel wizards and someone a lot of you have probably interacted with through our support system. We're also joined by John Pevitt, our chief technology officer at Promevo, who's going to talk you through our latest additions to gPanel. Thank you for the emojis. If you don't know Promevo, we are a Google Cloud Premier partner who serves all of a business's Google needs from Chrome to cloud. We can manage and provide one-to-one support for all your Google products, including Chromebooks, Google Workspace, Google Cloud Platform, Looker, Maps, Voice, all the Google things that you all have come to know and love. If you're only working with Promevo on Google Workspace and gPanel, then you're only seeing a tiny fraction of how we can help your business. What is gPanel? Not everyone here is a gPanel user. We know that some of you are either looking into it, maybe kicking off a free trial. At the top level, gPanel is Promevo's proprietary Google Workspace user management and reporting platform. What does it do? It takes the functions that you find in Google Admin Console and it adds in a much deeper level of granularity, user control and management, way more reports, automation. API integration is a new one. So you can connect Workspace to your HRIS system. Besides efficiency in what I always refer to as workspace omniscience, gPanel helps protect your company from security risks like email phishing scams, from unauthorized sharing of sensitive documents, visibility with shared drives, things like that. If you're watching this and you're not already a gPanel user, sign up for a free trial or reach out to us, someone like Mark or John, or even myself. We'll give you a walkthrough, a personally guided tour, if you will. Okay, so let's get into it. The new feature that we want to talk through for this month is actually a bit of a new user experience. I'd like to bring in John to walk you through what's going to change.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. So even with gPanel being pretty intuitive today and being able to navigate, one of the most requested features our users have had is to improve the user experience, to make it easier to find and take certain actions. And we've spent a lot of time reimagining that with our user advisory board. Thank you all for participating in that. We've shown concepts along the way. We've gotten feedback, and we're proud to announce that we've gotten to the first milestone of being able to bring that forward. The new user experience is going to be something that allows us to build more modern looking features into gPanel to make the application faster, more responsive, and to provide some new levels of functionality we weren't able to provide in the past on the old tech platform. So Mark is going to toggle on the new experience in the rollout at the end of the month. You'll be able to, as a user, go in there and switch between version 1 and version 2. And we've made this toggle individual per user so that you can control which version of the UI you want to see. And this will be the place where you can come and try out and see some of the new user experience The first module that this exists in is user management. So Mark has shown this section here. If you go into something like directory or another area of the application, you'll still see the menu on the left has the new navigation, but the inner UI is still the legacy UI for those pieces. So as we roll this out module by module, each one of those areas will get retouched. So the next one that the team's working on is directory that they'll be rolling out, and then they'll navigate their way through these kind of one at a time. Mark, if you go back to user management, I'll talk through some of kind of the design cues that we've added in here. So search within user management, you'll see is now up in the left and embedded. We've added more visual cues to things like status, so you can see color and badges on it. And then we've made it easier to see and more intuitive when it comes to things like filters and things on the right-hand side of this grid. So things are more in context of the area map that you're at, and easier for you to navigate and apply some of the filtering capabilities in each area. There's some of the kind of key features. And Mark, if you want to talk about anything else on this page or then drive into a specific user, we can go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So other things on this page would be you still have the ability to select a user. And now the actions are located in this section here, and you can easily choose any of your actions here. For example, adding a user to a group. This is now what it looks like. We have integrated these drop-down menus, a search bar. You can change the user roles pretty easily. And so that's an example there. Here's an example of how the organization will look. The ability to have a drop-down menu and select from your organizations and so forth.
Beyond the things Mark was showing you, the left nav I didn't really talk about. We've taken some efforts to organize and segment that so you can see key features people use, and then finding things like reports and automation and administration and billing at the bottom. So we'll continue to add more kind of navigation cues. Some of the things that we're going to talk about coming up in the future is the ability to bookmark specific areas in the app that you want to go to and be able to quickly access just those bookmarks.
So now we're going to take a closer look at an individual user.
So when you look at a user account now, we've taken some elements like stats on the user and made them more visible than they were before. So they have top billing there. We've taken the navigation tabs that were nested tabs and tabs and just brought those up to the top to make it cleaner and easier to find. And then you'll notice some of the common controls are the same across every area of the app, the drop downs, the text fields, the interactions with them, and what they look like when they're active or they take focus. That all goes across any area. And you'll see that not just in user management, but if you're getting into directory, other things that all feel more familiar as we roll this out.
A few things to point out here. The save button is now incorporated here, and it's always visible, unlike before where it was only visible when you would make a change. So now it's always visible, and you can see that if you make any sorts of changes or edits, you'll have access to it here. Across the top, we have, instead of listed on the side here, just to save a little bit of real estate, we've now put the subsections across the top here, and you can just scroll through. This first subsection is the general settings. Everything else would be very similar to how it was, except for the interface, of course, is different. If we head over to something like Drive, they should all seem very familiar. You still have access to the user's Drive folders and files here. But now the ability to do some things, we've just changed things around to make it a lot easier to access. You can view the folder or file here, rename it, or add sharing. These buttons here that used to be to the upper right, they're not here. So you can hit your full drive transfer here. You'd be able to create a folder here.
What's neat about this is seeing the buttons stay in context of the area where they matter now versus having to be confused in the past, which ones are at the top or which ones are in the context of a panel. And then seeing again what Mark's showing, like this common grid coming across, not just the user management, but also in Drive. So you get the same kind of feel and experience as you go throughout the gPanel.
Absolutely. So just to show you a little bit more, it's the same sort of look all over. And I'm not sure if we have anything in mobile devices, maybe not, but it,
I think, I think that's a really good overview of certain things in the past too. When you didn't have context, would also throw like messages or weird errors. We're also handling some of the error messaging and handling within the app to make it clear. They're more self-explanatory. If something happens, you don't have access to it. So those are some of the things that we're also cleaning up as we go through here. One of the other things I'd like to throw out to the audience is a call to action. If there's suggestions or things that you have for us in terms of user experience that as you use the new feature that rolls out at the end of the month that you would like us to incorporate, please send us feedback. It's not too late to bake any of that into gPanel, but what we're searching for here is to make this a comfortable and easy user experience for everyone, still giving you the power to do more in gPanel than you could with just Workspace Admin alone. And we'd love to hear your feedback. We really use our user community to help us bring this app forward and make it better for everyone.
Yes, we absolutely do. And so with that, if you had any questions right now regarding our new UI, if you had any quick questions, just go ahead and let us know.
We do have one that was submitted. Can we see Gmail storage used as well at the top of that user interface?
So we don't actually have API for Gmail storage through Google Workspace today. There is a report, and what we found is that data is still out of date. So it's one of the things that we're asking for Google to improve. For now, we do know that the data we showed you here in this new UI on a user is accurate for drive usage and total drive storage, but they're not giving us a good number for Gmail yet today. And the new GUI will be available at the end of the month. So the last Monday of January, that toggle will roll out with gPanel, and then a user will be able to go in and turn that on.
This is for all gPanel users, regardless of what tier you're on. Correct. Is it going across the entire user base?
Yeah. So all users have access to the new user experience. Functions within the tiers are still tied to those, but they wouldn't be visible if you don't have a standard or enterprise license.
And just to be clear, the new user interface will be rolling out on a section by section basis over what time frame?
Yeah, that's correct. We're expecting over the next 2 to 3 quarters to touch everything within gPanel and bring it to this new modern user experience. We think this quarter we'll finish off directory and like calendars, and then we'll move on to Drive. As we hit certain features, though, we want to make enhancements. So we see Drive as an area that we can make a lot better than it is today beyond just the management. So we'll probably add more time in there than the other areas. Same with Report Center to make it easier for people to find and see reports. So those are on our roadmap as improvement plus UI enhancement.
Excellent. And Joan asks, will an email announcement be coming out when the new interface is available for us to use? As the head of the marketing team, I can confirm that yes, if you are subscribed to our gPanel release notes, you will hear about it before anyone else. Actually, those of you that are here today are hearing about it before anyone else. You will hear about its availability as soon as it's ready. And another question here is, will we be able to add recovery information to the new UI?
So that's a good question. So we have that feature on our roadmap. It's not in here in the new UI at rollout, but adding like recovery codes is something that we want to marry up to make sure we have API coverage for, which with Google, and it is on the roadmap for a feature. We don't have a date for it yet, though. Yeah. I've been asked in the chat about an integration that allows transfer of email. I know today we can do the Drive transfer, but email transfers are completely separate type of thing with Google. We can assist with that from a services standpoint, but we don't have an API from Google that allows us just to clone mail from one box to another yet. So those are still manual efforts. It's something we could build a feature for, but it's not currently slated on the roadmap. And Ariel, sorry, I answered your question incorrectly. I mean recovery phone numbers and email addresses. Yeah, you can still go in and add custom attributes or update information on any of the contacts within gPanel. So if you have recovery numbers or email addresses, you can fill in that data for each user. You can also do a bulk import.
Okay, I'm a little bit more familiar with this, but I was speaking with Ariel before about this. I think he's referring to the recovery information that's in the My Google account. And I believe we're working on that. I have submitted your feature request. I'll check on that after our call, and I'll get back to you. No problem. You're welcome.
Sure.
Thanks for the clarification, Mark.
We love it. Yeah, this is great. I want to emphasize or reemphasize something that John said, that a lot of these improvements, a lot of the updates to the interface come as a direct result of your interaction, of your feedback, of your comments. What features do you want? What statement can you make that says, I wish gPanel did this, or I wish gPanel looked like this? This is a direct result of that feedback, and all we can do is ask for more. We always love hearing from our users. What do you like about it? What do you dislike about it? What do you wish it could do? So the more of that we can get from you, the more that we'll continue to build and add in and refine. But I think this is a big, significant first step and just improving not just the look, but the usability and how things are bundled together based on actions, like getting more into the user panel here, I think is a pretty significant first start. My last question is how customizable is this? So like I noticed we have the kind of aqua blue or aqua green highlights. Can I make that my organization's color?
Now, to right now, we're not allowing the theme to be selected per user. We've talked about it, or dark mode. We've talked about doing those, but first pass, we just want to get through the app. The way we're styling it, potentially we could open that up after we're done and through the app, but we just didn't want to encounter styling issues as we're trying to roll out new UI.
That's right. Step at a time. Okay. Last question on this one, and then we'll get into the policies workshop. When offboarding a user, if the user is a member of 10 email distro lists, will the new features remove the user automatically from distro groups, or will this continue to be a manual process?
So we don't have a feature in there that changes the distro list removing, but I think that's a pretty good idea for us to get into the app in terms of either
Okay.
policy action, which Mark is going to talk about, be able to go through and have it find every distro or share after you VFE them or decom the account and remove them. So we'll capture a note on that. But thanks for bringing that one up, Tom.
There you go. There's gPanel future development happening in action. Thank you for that, John. I appreciate it. Mark, thank you for walking us through it, sharing. As a reminder, you guys will get a recording so you can check this out. You'll get a copy of the deck to look at as well. Okay, let's talk about policies. Mark, if just right off the top, before we get into a, a demo or tutorial, can you talk about what is a policy?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Sometimes we just throw around the term policy and we don't really take the time to explain what it is. You can think of a policy as a custom automatic job, and they can be used to automatically apply actions to users. And so we have two types of policies. We have a standard policy and a new user creation policy. And the difference between those two are that standard policies can be applied to a user or users at any time, whereas a new user creation policy, as the name would imply, are selectable to be applied to a user upon creating that new user's account. So with that, I'm going to jump back into gPanel and I'll take you through how to set up a policy. All right, here we go. Let me just a sec here. All right, so for this, let me go ahead and take you through creating both a standard and a new user creation policy, and I'll explain what I do along the way. So once you're in gPanel here, policies are located in your tools section, and the first subsection in tools is already policies, so you don't have to click it again. I believe that will change slightly in our new interface, but we will see when we get there. When you get to this page, if you don't see anything on your list, it means you don't have any policies created yet. If you do see something similar to mine, it means you've created a few policies already. And when you hover over each one, you can highlight that policy and check out the details. And the details would be the policy name. So that's the name that you've given the policy so you can identify it. The policy type. So this is pretty important. You can see that we have new user creation policies and standard policies on this list. And as I've mentioned before, what the differences are, you can easily see which policy you're looking at here. You can see when the policy was created, when the policy was last ran, and a summary of the actions that you have in that policy. So you can choose a single action for a policy, or you can bundle actions together if they make sense to do so, depending on what you want your policy to do. Today, we're going to go ahead and create a new policy, and that's by hitting the plus sign in the upper right, the add button. A pop-up window will open, and this is the policy creation window. In this window, we're just going to follow each of these sections here from start to finish, starting with basic information. So here's that policy name I was talking about. We can go ahead and name this policy. The scenario we're going to use is that your HR team is growing and you'd like to have a policy in place that you can apply to someone who's joining the HR team. And you'd like the policy to automatically be able to add them to the HR assistant group that was previously created, and then change their gPanel role to calendar administrator so that they'd have the ability to administer HR events like a payroll calendar or something to your users. So for that, we're going to use a standard policy. I'm going to name this HR team. The policy type is going to be standard. I can also choose new user creation. You have the option to run this manual if you'd like, and also run it on a schedule if you'd like it to repeat. I'm going to go ahead and go forward. Here are your policy actions. When you select an action and you move it to the right, that means the action has been selected. And you can do that in a couple of ways. You can click on the checkboxes here and then hit add selected. You can hover over and just hit the plus sign, or you can hit add all and you can remove them in the same way. But I'm going to go ahead and remove everything. For this particular policy, I'm going to choose the actions that I need to add the user to the HR assistant group. So I'm going to hit add to group. And the other action that I wanted to include in this policy is to change their gPanel role to a calendar admin. So I'm going to find and select change gPanel role. And so these are all I want in this policy. On the next page, the action configuration, it's going to go through each of these and we can further configure the actions for each these actions. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And we're going to start with add to groups, and then we're going to move on to change gPanel role when I hit next. So now we're going to configure what the add to group action does. And so here we're going to select the group. And to do that, start typing in the group's name. I believe I call this HR assistant group. There it is. It will automatically suggest different groups. So I'm going to select the one I want, and I'm going to select the role that I want to give the person. I'll probably just be member unless you wanted to make a specific management type group or something. But I'm going to go ahead and hit add. Excuse me. And now I've added it here. So that means anyone who I apply this to will be automatically added to this HR assistant group. And you can continue to add groups if you'd like. You can stack them up, but we're not going to do so in this example. Next, we're going to configure the other action that we talked about, which is changing their gPanel role to a calendar admin. So I've previously already created the calendar admin role. So here, all we have to do is, and I called it calendar admin. So I'm just going to search for calendar admin, and there it is. It pops up. We're going to select it, and that's all you have to do there. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And now we're going to apply the scope of it, the targets. I'm just going to choose a single user by hitting the user icon here. If when I select the user icon, I can either search, which is already highlighted. I can search for a user here and select them. I can also browse, which I prefer to do. You could do either one. It will show you every single user, and you can just go ahead and go down the list and add whoever you'd like. Once it's on the right-hand side, that's who's selected. But I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to show you more things. You can also browse through groups. So these are all of your groups. You can browse through organizational unit. So there they are. And you can also browse through domains. If you had more than just your primary domain, if you had secondary domains, they would be listed here, and you can just choose everyone in your domain. For this example, I'm just going to select a single unit. Actually, I'll select a group. Makes a little more sense. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'll select a user. So we'll select this person. And target exclusions, if I was selecting more than one user or a group or OU, for instance, I could add an exclusion and just specify who I would like to exclude here. Afterwards, the final step is to review. You have a chance to review your policy, everything that you filled out here, and especially the actions down in this section. So you can just have one last chance to check out the actions. And then you have as an option, if you check this box, you can send a notification email to yourself or to somebody else. Just select the name and make sure you hit the plus sign so that you see it down there. Once you do that, this person will get a notification email. I'm going to go ahead and apply this policy immediately after saving. I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. Once I do that, you'll see that HR team pops up on our list here, and we have a notification that it is indeed running. So now anybody that we add to this group will have those policies applied. We can apply this to anybody in the group. So that would be an example of a standard policy. In our next scenario, I'm going to be going over a new user creation policy. And just as a recap, so these are a set of policies that you can select when you create a new user. In this scenario, I'd like to have a policy in place that can be selected when creating new users that automatically applies a few actions. A few of the actions I'm going to select here are what I'd like this policy to do in this example is to allow the HR assistants to be granted delegation over the new user's inbox. And I'd also like any messages, any Gmail messages sent to the new user from the HR group. I'd like them to be flagged with a star next to it just to signify it's important. And then I'd also like to have a label automatically created in the new user's inbox from the very start of when they start their Gmail service. So that's this scenario. So to do that, I'm once again going to head up to the top and hit add. I'm going to choose the policy name. I'm just going to call it, let's see, I don't want to choose anything I've used before. I'll call it demo user. And this time we're going to choose a new user creation policy. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. The actions, there's some overlap in the actions, but we don't have every action because not every action is applicable to new users. But in this particular example, we're going to be adding a delegate to this new user's account. And so we're going to be choosing this one, add a delegate to the account. That's going to be an inbox delegation. So choose that. We're going to be creating a Gmail filter. That's down here and create Gmail filter. And then also creating a Gmail label. That would be this one. So these are the three actions I'm configuring for this example. I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And all right, so here we're going to be configuring the first action, which is adding a delegate to the account. In this case, I want to add everybody in the HR assistant group will be a delegate to any of these new users. So we're going to select groups. We can browse, but that might take too long. Oh, actually, it's right here, HR assistant group. You can also use search and type in if you'd like. So you have a couple of different options there. So now we've said anybody in the HR assistant group will become a delegate to this new user. We're going to hit next and configure the second action, which is creating an email filter. So, or a Gmail filter. This is just like creating a Gmail filter if you go to your Gmail settings, but you can do this on behalf of a user and create filters for them, which is really nice. And so we're going to have a filter set up for them from the very beginning. So anything from our HR assistant group's email will have a star next to it, just flagged with a star, just denoting that it's important. You can fill this out in any other way that you'd like, but that's all I'm going to do for this example. I'll go ahead and hit next. Now we're going to, our last action was to create a Gmail label in their inbox. So we're going to create a label here. We'll just call it welcome. Add a plus sign. You can add as many labels as you want. And these are also sometimes known as folders inbox, but for Gmail, they're called labels. When the new user starts off, they'll have a welcome label. I'm going to hit next. We can exclude any targets. We're going to leave this blank because there would probably be no reason to, but if you wanted to, you could. Go ahead and hit review. Once again, you can go ahead and review everything and send a notification email if you'd like. And we're going to go ahead and submit that. And you can see it popped up here. Oh, what did I call it? Demo new user. And it's actually new user creation policy as opposed to our standard policy. And so with that, oh, before I move on, I'd like to just show you that you can copy the policy. You can go back in and edit the policy here. So with that, I'm going to show you where you can go to apply these new user creation policies. Remember, you can apply a standard policy at any time, but a new user creation policy can only be applied when you create a new user. So to do that, we're going to need to be in the user management section. Creating a new user. In our user management section, we'll create a new user by hitting add user, the plus sign in the upper right. And we'll just really quickly go through the new user setup here. I'll just do, let's see, Bobby Smith. We'll just randomize the password, hit next. And we're just going through all these settings here. The policies you'll notice are at the very end. So we basically have to work our way through. Here, if you haven't done this before in gPanel, you have the chance to select the OU, the organizational unit, where this new user will be created. We'll just leave them in the top level. You can specify their cPanel role, which would be the Google Admin Console. You can specify their gPanel role, but actually, this would be redundant for the policy we've chosen, so I'm going to leave that blank. You can force the password to reset on the next login. That's defaulted to yes, and then share the user to the directory. So we're going to go ahead and go forward. In the group section, once again, this would be redundant because we had actually added that to our policy. So we're going to skip the group section. We don't need to add them to a group, but you can if you need to. In the next section, here you have a chance to fill out all of the employee information, and we definitely recommend that you do. But for this example, we wouldn't have to. So I'm going to go ahead and skip this part here. So you have the option to send a welcome letter. And if you do, you can read the welcome letter here. It's just optional. And then we're going to go to the part that we're actually focusing on, which is the policies. So the policies, any new user creation policy will live on this list here. And you can see each of the policies. This is the one we just created, demo new user. But you can actually see that we have several other new user policies that you can add to this user if you'd like. To quickly see what is in the policy, you can click on this eyeball icon, and it will give you a quick rundown of the policy details, specifically showing you the actions that you have here. And that's what's important. I'm gonna head back. You can do that for each one of these. So they're all a little bit different. To select a policy, as before, you can hit this check mark and then hit move selected here. That'll move a policy over. You can also hit the plus sign or the minus sign to move it back and forth. Or you can hit move all if you want to just add every single policy. You could probably safely do that if you knew exactly what was in all of these policies, but probably not recommended. We're just going to hit a demo new user. That's the policy that we'd like. So now this user will be created with this policy in mind. I'm going to go ahead and, I don't actually have a real license to apply to this person. So in this case, I won't be able to jump into their Gmail to give you an example of what it's going to look like, but I can tell you they will have a Gmail label that will say welcome. And anything sent to them by the HR assistant group, any member of that group, will be flagged with a star. And anybody in the HR assistant group that logs in will see that person, they'll have the option to jump into that person's account as an email delegate. So, all right. And with that being said, that is actually all there is to it for creating and applying policies.
Thanks for walking us through it. We do have a few questions. It looks like the majority of them are around how do we trigger a policy? Can it be automated? One of the viewers asked, my users are created through like a directory sync. Can I automatically apply policies as they come in? If you could address the question of how is a policy triggered, or how do I apply a policy and can it be automated?
Oh, sure. We're going to go back to our standard policy that we created. I think it was this one, HR team. Let's see. So when I hover over the HR team, since it's a standard policy, I have this option to run now. It will only run on the target that I selected. So you may want to go back and edit first and change up the targets or add more or delete targets. But yeah, it's right there, run now. And then new user creation policies won't have that because they can only be applied at the beginning when you create a new user.
One note I'll make is if you have something that's not creating users through gPanel and it's happening via sync or it's happening via Okta or something else, you can use the API in the enterprise version to trigger as part of your Okta workflow or another workflow, the policy that Mark defines here. So allow you to codify the policies that you want to have run and then trigger them through an integration.
Awesome. Another one is, do policies expire? Can I set a time frame in which a policy expires or needs to be reviewed?
No, currently they don't expire. You can see when they were created. Some of your policies, if they've been around for too long, you may want to review because things, say if you've targeted an OU, things might have changed, like that OU might be deleted completely or the name changed or something. It's just good to be able to look at the created date and then just review the policy manually, but there's no expiration.
Okay. One more that I would throw in there, Mark, is how is a policy fundamentally different than an automation?
Oh, sure. Policy in itself is just an action that you can run at any time. And it becomes an automation when and I guess I might not have been totally clear on that. I'm going to go ahead and edit this policy again, go back into it. It can become an automation when you set the schedule here. When I flip this tab over, you'll see an additional section be created here, which I guess I did skip over that. You'll see that now we have a scheduling section. So if we jump to the scheduling section, you'll have the ability to schedule different days of the week. Even like you can add several times of of the day that it can happen, like multiple times in a day. Oops, I think I chose the same one. Or, oh no, I just have to change each of these. You could have multiple times in one day or every 2 days, the days of the month, or monthly. You could have it run monthly. In that way, you can make it automated.
There was one more question out there in the chat about triggering policies beyond schedules and things like if a user's added to a group. So we're working on some advanced automation this quarter, and it's going to start with some Drive type automation where if a certain event happens in Drive, then you can have some certain actions happen. This idea around user actions or group actions, that's going to become a part of that probably in Q2 this year. So this idea of I want to trigger a policy when I add a user to a group is one of those ideas that would be solved by that advanced automation.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. So hopefully that was helpful. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. Let me maximize the screen. As always, Promevo is open for your questions and comments. This specific email here, updates@promevo.com. You can submit anything you want to say to that. It'll come directly to my inbox. I'll make sure that we, address it either through a support ticket, or we'll put it on the next webinar. We'll bring it up there. Before we go, first off, thank you. It's really good seeing everyone. Love the interaction. Love the questions in the chat. Be sure you're on the gPanel mailing list. That's that first link here. Go to promevo.com/gPanel newsletter. You'll be the first to hear about new webinars, new features, things like that. Just as a reminder, we have these scheduled for every month through the end of the year. In February, we're going to cover offboarding and decommissioning. In March, we're jumping into reporting, which I know is a big one. And in April, we're talking about signature chip templates. But in the future, we have gPanel office hours scheduled around automation, around the gPanel APIs. You can go and sign up for each one on a case-by-case basis, or you can fill out a form. There's a little checkbox on there that will let you sign up for every one of them. And you can just be notified like a day before it goes live. But remember what I mentioned earlier about you will get some notifications right off the bat. And I apologize for that. But yeah, that's it. If you're not already working with Promevo, then please reach out. If you're not a gPanel user, you're just curious about it, then by all means, come to promevo.com/gPanel and kick off your free trial today and reach out to get someone like Mark or John who can take you through it and help make you an expert at it. Thanks again to everyone who joined. Thanks for being a great community. Mark, John, thank you. Thanks for joining us today and lending your expertise.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
All right. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you at the next one.